You've been told your whole life, drink your milk for strong bones. But what if I told you that there's a common food, one you've probably walked past in the grocery store 100 times, that delivers even more calcium than milk, and with added benefits for muscle strength, joint resilience, and even mood regulation? And here's the real twist. It's not just about the amount of calcium, it's about how your body absorbs and uses it. What neuroscience and nutrition research now tell us is this: the effectiveness of calcium depends heavily on what it's paired with, how it interacts with other nutrients, and what time of day you consume it. Calcium alone is not the hero. It's part of a performance team, and for those of us over 40 or 50, or even in our 30s but living under high stress, that matters more than ever. Why? Because the silent erosion of bone density and muscle strength begins much earlier than we think. It's not just about avoiding fractures in old age. Weak bones and muscles are linked to slower reaction time, reduced balance, poor posture, fatigue, and even impaired cognitive performance. Your body is literally the frame through which your brain expresses its potential. If that frame weakens, everything else suffers. But there's good news. We now know that nutrition can be a powerful lever, not just to stop bone loss, but to actually rebuild it. And one surprising food, richer in bioavailable calcium than milk, is showing up in studies again and again. Here's what we'll explore in this episode: why most people are absorbing far less calcium than they think, and how to change that. A food that quietly delivers more calcium per gram than milk, and how to use it effectively. The neurocalcium link: how calcium impacts brain function, sleep, and stress resilience, the 3 nutrients you must pair with calcium for actual bone and muscle strengthening, a morning habit that turns your breakfast into a bone-building protocol, a little-known hormone influenced by light, movement, and diet that makes or breaks your calcium absorption. We'll walk away with not just information, but actionable tools backed by hard science that you can apply starting today to make your bones and muscles stronger, your joints more resilient, and your energy more stable. Because the truth is, calcium isn't just a nutrient, it's a signaling molecule for strength, for contraction, for activation, both in the body and in the brain. Let's dive into the science, the protocols, and the one food that might just change the way you think about bone health forever. Let's start with a counterintuitive fact. Most people are consuming enough calcium. They're just not absorbing it. According to research from the National Institutes of Health, the average calcium absorption rate for adults is between 25% and 30%. That means for every 1,000 milligrams you take in, whether through food or supplements, your body may only actually use 250 to 300 milligrams. The rest, it either passes through your digestive system unused or, worse, gets misdirected into tissues where it doesn't belong, like blood vessels or joints, especially if the right co-nutrients aren't present. But why is this happening? Calcium absorption is not a passive process. It requires healthy intestinal function, active transport mechanisms, regulated by vitamin D3 and hormonal signals, particularly from the parathyroid gland, to move calcium into bones and muscles where it can actually do its job. And if any part of that system is disrupted due to aging, poor diet, low sunlight exposure, high stress, or gut inflammation, you can consume all the dairy or supplements you want and still remain functionally deficient. Here's what the research shows. A 2020 study in Frontiers in Nutrition found that gut microbiota diversity plays a key role in calcium absorption efficiency. A healthy, fiber-rich diet that promotes beneficial bacteria helps the gut lining transport minerals more effectively. But chronic inflammation, a common byproduct of stress, processed foods, and low fiber intake, can create what's called enteric resistance, making the gut less responsive to calcium transport, even when calcium is plentiful. This has real consequences. Low calcium absorption leads to a condition called secondary hyperparathyroidism, where your body, sensing low circulating calcium, releases more parathyroid hormone, PTH. PTH then begins pulling calcium from your bones to stabilize blood levels. Over time, this creates a slow, quiet erosion of your skeletal system, and unlike bone fractures, you won't feel it happening until one day a small fall results in a major break, or your joints begin to ache from years of mineral depletion. But bones aren't the only concern. Calcium is also essential for muscle contraction, nerve transmission, and even heartbeat regulation. If you're chronically low on bioavailable calcium, you may experience subtle symptoms like muscle cramps, poor recovery from workouts, tingling sensations, or even anxiety like restlessness. Because calcium plays a role in neurotransmitter balance as well. What's happening in your brain when this occurs is tied to calcium ions help neurons release neurotransmitters across synapses. Inadequate calcium, the brain's communication system weakens, leading to lower focus, mental fatigue, and slower reaction times. So what's the solution? First, it's understanding that absorption is the bottleneck. It's not just what you eat, it's how your body processes it. A simple tool to apply is this. Pair your calcium intake with a source of healthy fat and vitamin D. Studies, including one published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, show that fat enhances the absorption of fat-soluble nutrients like vitamin D, which in turn increases calcium uptake by the intestines. That means a calcium-rich breakfast with eggs, avocado, or olive oil will do more for your bones than a glass of milk on its own. Also, minimize caffeine and excessive salt during calcium-rich meals. Both of these increase calcium excretion through the urine, reducing net retention. In essence, calcium is not just about quantity, it's about the ecosystem you create in your body to support its journey from digestion to deployment. Now, the surprising research-backed food that contains more calcium than milk and how to incorporate it into your daily protocol. When you think of calcium, your mind probably jumps to milk, cheese, and yogurt. But there's a food that outperforms all of these in calcium content per gram, and it's plant-based, inexpensive, and surprisingly versatile. That food is sesame seeds, particularly in the form of tahini. Let's look at the numbers. A tablespoon of tahini contains around 126 milligrams of calcium, while a cup of milk delivers about 300 ml. That may not seem dramatic until you realize that a small amount of tahini, just 2 tablespoons, delivers nearly as much calcium as a full cup of milk, and often in a form your body can absorb more efficiently, especially when paired with the right fats and co-nutrients. And it doesn't stop there. Chia seeds and almonds are also high in calcium, but sesame seeds are unique in that they also contain magnesium, zinc, phosphorus, and healthy fats, all nutrients that act synergistically with calcium to support bone density and muscular function. Here's what the research shows. A 2014 study published in the International Journal of Rheumatic Diseases found that sesame seed supplementation improved pain and mobility in patients with osteoarthritis of the knee. The participants consumed just 40 grams of sesame seeds daily, about 4 tablespoons, and saw significant improvements compared to a control group receiving standard medication. While the researchers noted anti-inflammatory benefits, a key takeaway was that the micronutrient density of sesame seeds supported better joint function through enhanced mineral availability. So why does the calcium in sesame seeds appear to be more bioavailable? One reason is the presence of natural oils and fats that enhance absorption. Calcium absorption requires vitamin D, but it's also influenced by dietary fat, which helps transport fat-soluble vitamins and minerals across the intestinal lining. Milk has fat, yes, but commercial milk is often homogenized, low in fat, or pasteurized in ways that may interfere with optimal nutrient uptake. Natural, whole sesame seeds or tahini provide calcium in a more integrative nutrient. Another reason? The calcium in sesame seeds is less likely to be bound to casein or oxalates, which are common in dairy or certain vegetables like spinach. Oxalates are compounds that can bind to minerals like calcium and inhibit their absorption. This is why not all high calcium foods are equal in terms of what your body can actually use. Here's a simple protocol to try. Morning ritual. Add 1 to 2 tablespoons of tahini to your breakfast. Mix it into oatmeal, drizzle it on whole grain toast, or stir it into a smoothie with almond milk and a scoop of collagen protein. Pair it with a few drops of vitamin D3, especially in winter, and you've got a bioavailable calcium combo that supports both bone integrity and neuromuscular health. Lunch or snack tool, try a calcium boosting dip. Blend tahini with lemon juice, garlic, and a bit of olive oil for a mineral-rich dressing or hummus alternative. Want to power up? Pair tahini with leafy greens like bok choy or kale. These have relatively low oxalate content and moderate calcium, which makes them excellent partners in bone-supportive meals. Now let's talk about practicality for a moment. Most people aren't going to track every milligram of calcium they eat. That's okay. What matters more is consistency and combinations. Using foods like tahini, chia, or almonds in daily routines, especially alongside vitamin D3 and K2, creates a foundation for bone and muscle resilience that builds over time. One last thing worth noting, sesame seeds also support hormonal balance. They contain lignans, which may help modulate estrogen metabolism, an added benefit for women going through perimenopause or postmenopause, a time when bone loss accelerates. If this insight is helping you think differently about where real nutritional strength comes from, consider subscribing. This channel is all about giving you science-backed tools you can use daily without the hype. Next, we're diving into the 3 nutrients your calcium depends on to actually work and how to combine them into an easy brain and body boosting routine. If calcium is the building block for bones and muscle contraction, then magnesium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2 are the architects and transporters that ensure it gets to the right place and does the right job. Here's the truth most people miss. Taking calcium alone is not only ineffective, it can be harmful. Without its critical cofactors, calcium might not reach your bones at all. Instead, it could end up in soft tissues like arteries or joints, contributing to problems like calcification, stiffness, or even cardiovascular risk. Let's break down this team of 3 and why each member matters. 1. Magnesium, the calcium gatekeeper. Magnesium is a mineral that works like a biological switch. It regulates calcium channels in your cells, telling them when to open and close. Without enough magnesium, calcium may enter cells uncontrollably, leading to tight muscles, irritability, poor sleep, or even increased risk of heart arrhythmias. What's happening in your body is this: calcium excites muscles while magnesium relaxes them. They need to be in balance for smooth function. That's why low magnesium is often behind symptoms like muscle cramps, restless legs, or trouble falling asleep. Even if your calcium intake is technically adequate, a 2013 study in BMC Medicine found that higher magnesium intake was associated with a significantly reduced risk of fractures, likely because magnesium not only enhances calcium absorption, but also directly affects bone quality and structure. A simple tool: ensure you're getting a 2-to-1 ratio of calcium to magnesium in your diet or supplements. If you're consuming 1,000 milligrams of calcium, aim for 400 to 500 milligrams of magnesium, preferably from foods like pumpkin seeds, spinach, almonds, or a high-quality supplement. 2. Vitamin D3. The calcium transporter vitamin D3 is essential for calcium absorption in the gut. Without it, your body can only absorb about 10 to 15% of the calcium you consume. With adequate D3, that absorption rate jumps closer to 30 to 40%. Here's what the science shows. A meta-analysis published in The Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology concluded that vitamin D supplementation alone did not significantly reduce fracture risk unless paired with calcium, emphasizing how these nutrients work best as a system. But it gets deeper. Vitamin D3 also influences over 1,000 genes related to immune regulation, mood, and muscle performance. It's synthesized in your skin in response to UVB light, meaning most people, especially in winter or in northern latitudes, are deficient unless they supplement. A practical tip: take your D3 supplement in the morning with fat like avocado or tahini to mimic the sun's natural rhythm. Many experts recommend 2,000 to 4,000 IU per day, but it's best to tailor your dose based on blood work. 3. Vitamin K2, the calcium director. Think of K2 as the traffic controller for calcium. It activates proteins like osteocalcin and matrix GLA protein, which guide calcium into your bones and teeth and away from arteries and organs. In simpler terms, without K2, calcium may go rogue. One standout study in the Journal of Thrombosis and Hemostasis showed that high vitamin K2 intake was linked to a 50% reduction in arterial calcification and cardiovascular risk. Unfortunately, most Western diets are low in K2. It's found in fermented foods like natto, a Japanese fermented soybean dish, hard cheeses, and egg yolks from pasture-raised chickens. An easy protocol: aim to eat fermented foods a few times per week, or consider a K2 supplement, preferably MK7 form at 90 to 180 mix daily, especially if you're taking D3 and calcium. When these nutrients work together, they create a biological triangle of strength. Calcium builds the structure, magnesium modulates function and absorption, vitamin D3 transports it into the bloodstream, vitamin K2 delivers it precisely where it's needed. This system doesn't just prevent problems, it promotes long-term strength, flexibility, and vitality in both your bones and muscles. Next, we'll explore something most people overlook: how calcium impacts your brain, from sleep quality to stress resilience, and what to do about it. When we talk about calcium, we usually think about bones, but calcium is just as vital for your brain, where it acts as a master communicator for nerve signals, emotional balance, and even the depth of your sleep. Let's break this down. Every time a neuron fires, every time you form a thought, recall a memory, or regulate your breath, calcium ions are involved. These ions serve as a kind of electrical messenger, triggering the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and GABA across the synaptic gap between brain cells. Here's what the research shows. A 2022 study published in Nature Communications found that calcium signaling disruptions are linked not only to mood disorders, but also to age cognitive decline. Simply put, when calcium regulation in the brain falters, everything from focus to memory to emotional control can suffer. So if you're experiencing brain fog, restless sleep, or difficulty staying focused, low calcium availability, or more accurately, poor calcium signaling, might be part of the equation. What's happening in your brain is this: low calcium disrupts serotonin production, which affects mood and calmness. Imbalanced calcium-magnesium levels can cause excessive excitation of neurons, leading to irritability or anxiety-like symptoms. And at night, calcium plays a role in converting tryptophan into melatonin, the hormone responsible for sleep onset. Yes, you read that right. Calcium influences your sleep. In fact, several studies, including one from the European Neurology Journal, have shown that calcium levels in the brain peak during the deepest stages of non-REM sleep. This is when your body does the heavy lifting of cellular repair, memory consolidation, and hormone regulation. If calcium levels are too low or erratic, the brain can struggle to reach these regenerative stages, resulting in lighter sleep, more nighttime waking, and less mental clarity the next day. So, how do we optimize brain-based calcium regulation? Here's a science-backed protocol. 1. Evening calcium timing matters. A small dose of calcium-rich food before bed, like a tablespoon of tahini, a handful of almonds, or a warm plant-based milk with sesame or chia, can support better melatonin production and smoother neurotransmitter activity overnight. Pairing it with magnesium, like a supplement or a banana, helps enhance this effect. 2. Balance excitation with calm. Magnesium, first remember, calcium excites neurons, magnesium calms them. If you're getting too much calcium relative to magnesium, you may notice trouble shutting your brain off at night. Try a calming wind-down ritual with magnesium glycinate, around 200 to 300 milligrams, to support brain relaxation. 3. Morning light, evening calm. Your body's calcium regulation is influenced by your circadian rhythm, which is tightly tied to sunlight exposure. Get 10-20 minutes of natural light in the morning to signal the start of your body's biological day. This helps regulate the hormones that control calcium balance, like cortisol and parathyroid hormone, and stabilize mood. 4, be mindful of overstimulation. Caffeine, stress, and overexposure to screens late at night increase neuronal excitation and can throw calcium signaling out of sync. Even though calcium is essential, it must be well managed. Think of it like electricity, powerful but potentially dangerous if it's ungrounded. What this all points to is a deeper truth. Calcium isn't just about strength, it's about stability. Stability of your bones, yes, but also your mood, attention, and internal rhythm. If you found this helpful, hit the like button, not just for the algorithm, but because it helps more people find science-backed tools to support their body and mind. Now we'll bring it all together into a morning routine, a single, easy-to-follow protocol to strengthen bones, fuel your brain, and improve calcium retention naturally. One of the most overlooked strategies for calcium optimization is timing. Not just what you eat, but when you eat it and what you pair it with can dramatically impact how well your body retains and utilizes calcium. Why the morning? Because your biology is primed for nutrient absorption and hormonal balance in the first few hours after waking. Cortisol, often thought of as just a stress hormone, peaks in the early morning, and in healthy levels, it actually facilitates the absorption and mobilization of nutrients like calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D. Here's the simple science. Your gut is most active and enzyme-rich early in the day. Parathyroid hormone PPH, which helps regulate calcium levels in your blood and bones, also responds more favorably to calcium intake in the earlier part of the day. And your circadian rhythm, the internal 24-hour clock that governs everything from sleep to immunity, plays a key role in directing how calcium is metabolized throughout your system. So how do you harness this biological window? With a morning protocol that's as simple as it is effective. The morning calcium optimization protocol. Hydrate first, 0 min after waking. Begin your day with 12 to 16 ounces of water. Add a pinch of sea salt and a squeeze of lemon to support mineral balance and kickstart your digestive system. This creates the internal hydration environment that helps usher nutrients into your cells. Sunlight exposure within 30 to 60 minutes of waking. Get 10 to 20 minutes of outdoor sunlight exposure. This doesn't just boost mood, it stimulates your brain's production of serotonin and sets the stage for later melatonin release. It also enhances the natural release of vitamin D precursors from the skin, which improves calcium absorption and utilization. Calcium-rich breakfast, 30 to 90 minutes after waking. Here's a high-performance meal suggestion. 2 tablespoons tahini or almond butter, rich in calcium and healthy fats. A slice of whole grain or sourdough toast, contains magnesium and fiber. 2 pasture-raised eggs or tofu scramble, adds protein. A small serving of steamed bok choy or kale, low oxalate calcium sources. Optional, a D3 plus K2 supplement with the meal, 2,000 to 4,000 IU D3 plus 90 to 180 milligrams K2. Pairing calcium with protein and fat slows digestion, supports blood sugar stability, and improves the bioavailability of both calcium and its cofactors. Gentle movement, 20 to 30 minutes of light mobility work, helps stimulate mechanical loading of the bones. Studies show that even gentle weight-bearing movement post-meal improves nutrient partitioning, including how calcium is used to strengthen the skeletal system. Here's what the research says. A 2019 study in Bone reports demonstrated that calcium absorption was significantly enhanced when consumed with breakfast compared to lunch or dinner. The researchers speculated this was due to natural variations in intestinal pH, hormonal regulation, and digestive enzyme activity earlier in the day. And when you add movement to that protocol, the benefits compound. Another study from the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research found that subjects who exercised in the morning had greater bone mineral density over time than those who exercised later in the day, independent of total exercise volume. This isn't about perfection. It's about habit stacking. Each of these practices on its own is powerful, but done together, they create a physiological prime time for bone and muscle health. And the mental side benefits, this kind of morning ritual doesn't just feed your body. It trains your nervous system for stability, presence, and energy that carries into your entire day. You don't need to overhaul your life to benefit. Even a simplified version, tahini toast, some sun, a short walk, can change the trajectory of your calcium retention and resilience over time. Next, we'll connect the dots between calcium and your hormones, specifically how light, movement, and diet interact with calcium-regulating hormones like parathyroid hormone and calcitonin to determine long-term skeletal health. At the center of calcium metabolism lies a fascinating hormonal loop, one that's tightly regulated by your brain, your bones, and your environment. Three hormones in particular play critical roles: parathyroid hormone, PTH, calcitonin, and vitamin D3, which functions more like a hormone than a vitamin. Together, these create a dynamic system that determines whether calcium is deposited into bone or drawn out into the bloodstream. Understanding this loop and how to influence it gives you powerful control over your skeletal health, especially as you age. Let's start with PTH, the mobilizer. Parathyroid hormone is secreted by the 4 tiny parathyroid glands in your neck. Its job is to raise blood calcium levels when they drop too low. How does it do this? By signaling your bones to release calcium into the bloodstream, increasing calcium reabsorption in the kidneys, and stimulating the conversion of vitamin D into its active form, which boosts calcium absorption in the gut. That means if you're chronically low in calcium or not absorbing it effectively, your PTH levels can remain elevated. This condition, called secondary hyperparathyroidism, leads to gradual bone loss even if your calcium intake looks normal on paper. Now, here's the critical insight. PTH follows a circadian rhythm. It's typically lowest in the morning and begins rising throughout the day, peaking at night. And that's why calcium intake, especially in the morning, as discussed earlier, helps buffer the need for PTH stimulation later in the day, reducing long-term bone turnover. Next comes calcitonin, the builder. Calcitonin, produced by the thyroid gland, has the opposite effect of PTH. It helps lower blood calcium levels by promoting calcium deposition into bones and reducing calcium reabsorption by the kidneys. Think of calcitonin as the bone-building hormone. But here's the catch. Its release is triggered by calcium spikes in the blood, often from food. So when you eat calcium-rich meals, ideally paired with vitamin D3 and K2, you get a natural pulse of calcitonin. This is one reason why consistent calcium intake across meals is more effective than taking one large calcium supplement once per day. You're helping your body drip feed the signal to build bone. The third player is light and movement. Remember, vitamin D3 is synthesized in your skin via sunlight, specifically UVB light. But D3 is also required for the activation of both PTH and calcitonin to work efficiently. Without adequate vitamin D, both hormones become dysregulated. And here's the even more interesting part. Mechanical load on bones from movement triggers local production of hormone-like molecules called osteokines, which work in tandem with these systemic hormones to promote calcium uptake. A 2018 study published in Endocrine Reviews found that osteocytes, bone cells, respond to stress from movement by signaling for more calcium to be embedded into bone tissue, especially when supported by vitamin D and dietary calcium. This is how regular weight-bearing activity literally instructs your body to make your bones stronger. So what's the take-home strategy? Here's your hormone-aligned calcium protocol. Morning light. Get 10 to 20 minutes of sun exposure soon after waking. This boosts vitamin D3 synthesis and helps synchronize your PTH rhythm with your biological clock. Daily movement. Walk, lift, stretch, or do any form of gentle resistance training daily. The key isn't intensity, it's consistency. Movement triggers bone-specific hormone signals that pull calcium into the skeleton. Calcium timing. Spread calcium intake across meals. Don't dump dose it all at once. Small, steady inputs support calcitonin release and stabilize PTH over time. Stress management. High cortisol from chronic stress suppresses calcitonin and impairs vitamin D3 metabolism. Daily practices like deep breathing, cold exposure, or journaling help protect this delicate hormonal axis. When you align your behaviors with your biology, you create conditions where your body naturally prioritizes bone building over bone breakdown, not just slowing aging, but actively reversing some of its effects. Now, we'll bring it all together. I'll walk you through the key takeaways and leave you with one specific science-backed tool you can implement today to start strengthening your bones and muscles from the inside out. Let's recap what we've uncovered, and more importantly, why it matters. We began with a surprising truth. Most people absorb far less calcium than they think. That insight alone reframes the calcium conversation. It's not just about consuming more, it's about creating the conditions inside your body for calcium to be used where it matters most: your bones, your muscles, and your brain. You learn that sesame seeds, particularly in the form of tahini, quietly outperform milk in terms of calcium density and bioavailability, especially when consumed with fat and vitamin D3. You now know that magnesium, D3, and K2 aren't optional. They're essential teammates that direct calcium towards strength, not stagnation. You saw that calcium is also a neurochemical player, supporting sleep depth, emotional regulation, and synaptic communication. And that it's not just what you eat, but when and how you eat it, as we saw in the morning protocol that combines sunlight, mineral-rich foods, and movement. And finally, we looked at the calcium hormone loop, how your circadian rhythm, daily activity, and light exposure work together with hormones like PTH and calcitonin to tell your body what to do with calcium. Store it, use it, or lose it. But beyond the biology, there's something even more powerful here. Consistency creates resilience. When you choose small daily habits that align with your body's natural systems, a calcium smart breakfast, a short walk in the sun, 5 minutes of breath work to lower stress, you build a foundation that doesn't just protect you from fractures or fatigue, it enhances how you show up in the world with more strength, more energy, more calm. So here's your challenge and your opportunity. Tomorrow morning, choose one thing. Maybe it's drizzling tahini over toast instead of butter, or stepping outside for sunlight before your coffee, or taking a D3 plus K2 supplement with your breakfast. Don't try to overhaul your life. Just start one feedback loop. When you feel stronger, more stable, and more alert, you're more likely to repeat the behavior. That's how change becomes identity. That's how bone health becomes brain health, and both become part of how you live. If you found value in this video, share it with someone who's serious about their health, especially those who think milk is the only answer. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. This channel is here to deliver grounded, science-backed tools to help you optimize your biology, elevate your mindset, and live longer and stronger. And in the comments, let me know, what's one habit you're going to try this week to support your bones and muscles? Because this isn't just about calcium, it's about reclaiming strength from the inside out.